Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. Joining Michael on the show today is Sarah Heal, who's the director and co-founder of Information Leadership, where they help organizations in New Zealand become more efficient, competitive, and innovative. Her firm, which consists of 70 employees, specializes in Microsoft 365 and Teams, and clients include well-known organizations in New Zealand like the Ports of Auckland, Sky Network Television, Wakadu Incorporation, among many others. But before we get there, some exciting news for you is we are actually running a giveaway. Now, we're really excited for this. So let me tell you exactly how you can enter and what you will get and what you might win. So first, if you head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review of the podcast, first of all, what you're going to receive is a free ebook on what consultants really charge in 2023, where you're going to learn what the highest earning consultants do differently with their fees. You can learn best practices, how to raise your fees by 2 to 3x. You're going to get real life case studies for how consultants have increased their fees by up to 100% plus an action plan for raising your fees with confidence on your very next consulting project. And to claim your free ebook, all you have to do is simply email us a screenshot of your rating and review. Now you can send us this at contest@consultingsuccess.com. Again, send an email screenshot of your rating or review at contest@consultingsuccess.com. Okay, so that's for anyone who leaves a rating and review. Now, as a bonus, for anyone that leaves a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, you're also going to go into a pool with a chance to win lifetime access to our Momentum Consulting course, which is 1 strategic hour each day to help you add 6 figures to your annual consulting income. Now, this course is regularly $2,000. However, if you leave a rating and review, you get the chance to win it completely free. And for all of the benefits of this course and what you get, I will add it in the show notes section of this podcast to make it easy for you. But like I said, again, head over to Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and review. There you'll get a free ebook, plus get entered into a draw to win a $2,000 course, the Momentum Consulting course. Okay, now back to what you are going to learn listening to today's episode with Sarah. First is how to improve your messaging to win new clients, how to delegate effectively within your organization, how to value your employees when making critical hires, how to niche down to improve your sales process and increase revenue, how to leverage awards and social proof to increase your credibility within your market, and how to avoid falling into a common trap before signing a new client, plus so much more. Here to share with you her full insight is Sarah Heal. Enjoy.
Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into our conversation today. Lots of ground to cover, but if we could just start and have you kind of give people a sense of how big is your company Information Leadership today in terms of number of people, employees, revenue, just anything that you can share.
Yeah, sure. So we're around about 70 employees. We've gone through quite a large growth spurt over the past couple of years. In any given month, we'll work on around about 100 different jobs. And our primary target is central government, local government, and commercial organisations have significant compliance or governance requirements. That's kind of into our sweet spot.
Right. Got it. Okay. And we're going to get into the details, break all this down, and make this hopefully very valuable for everybody joining us. But before we do that, you just touched on something. You said we've been going through a growth spurt over the last few years. Can you just talk a little bit more about that? When you say growth spurt, take us before the growth spurt and then to where you are today. What changed in terms of number of employees or anything you can share in terms of kind of actual growth achieved in terms of percentage? Just kind of give us a sense of what actually changed and what did that growth spurt look like?
Yeah, sure. So from when we started, we've been growing kind of steadily but carefully. And I think when you start off and you're 2 people and then you add 1 person, well, that's quite a big percentage growth, right? But over time, we've just sort of slowly, incrementally added numbers. We don't take on, so we try and manage our risk really tightly. And one of the things that happened a couple of years ago is we kind of got stuck at about that 40-person mark. And we kind of moved backwards and forwards, 35, 45, backwards and forwards for a couple of years. And then we put a particular emphasis, some of the work we've been doing around culture and values, but also then really getting very, very clear about messaging and our customer, who we're trying to serve, what we're trying to do. And so that's meant that over the past 12 months, we've really added significant numbers. I think we added about 10 in 1 month. So that comes with some growing pains that we're trying to navigate our way through now.
Right.
Yeah, so really on the back of the clearer that we've got about what our offer is and what our messaging is, the more that the market has responded.
Got it. So just to jump in, what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is you're at the 35, 40 team member number for a while. As you really dialed in your offerings, your messaging to the market much clearer, and just added maybe more focus to that, that has then in return led to winning more business. And as you've been winning more business, that's now allowed you to continue building the team and go from that 35, 40 up to 70 people or so where you are today. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I think one of the things, we work in the technology space, one of the things people are very aware of if they work in the technology space is the phrase technological debt or technical debt. I think the owner of a company and you're growing a company, something to be aware of is organizational debt, which is as you grow, there's actually hardening that you need to do around your systems and processes. There's different ways of thinking, there's different ways of organizing. But often, for me, that step change from sort of 50 to 70 has meant quite a significant step change in how we work, how we operate. And so we've been progressively dealing with that kind of organizational debt of moving from a small company to a medium-sized company.
Yeah, so I'd love to kind of a 2-part question, and I'll plant one seed, then we can come back to it in a moment. So I would love to hear what's maybe an example of what has changed in going from that 50 to 70. You said there's some resistance or friction or just something you've had to overcome. I'd love to get an example of that. And then I'd also love if we could then come back to, you mentioned that you changed the messaging or the offers or the focus, which led to business picking up. What did you change specifically? I'd love to hear kind of around the messaging or the offers and maybe just an example of that so people can really see like, oh, you changed some wording or you changed the focus of a problem or a result. Like, what did you actually adjust that you feel had the biggest overall impact? So let's just leave that for a moment. And if we could zoom back now to going from 50 to 70 people, what's an example of something that you've had to adjust in order to accommodate that growth?
Yeah, so probably a couple of things, and that's still very much a work in progress, right? So I wouldn't say that we were there yet. One of the things about having grown slowly and incrementally, and when we've grown slowly and incrementally, mostly to a large extent, we'd hired people we knew, and then they hired people that they knew, which was a lovely organic way to grow. But when you're making that step change, you would just run out of people that you know. And so our ability to bring on significant numbers of people, still keep the revenues ticking, make them useful, make them productive, make them safe for themselves and for us. That's been our largest challenge. And I think that's one we're going to continue to navigate over the next few years because we do plan to grow further. And so it's something I think that we're starting to think about, well, what does it look to actually really get good at this? From how we attract good talent to how we onboard it to how we then put it into our projects and have it working really, really well. I think that's kind of been one of the biggest challenges for us. I think the other challenge is, and again, you kind of get this where you're founder-led, it's a real strength that you can kind of do everything. And I've pretty well done everything in the business. I've done the tax, I've done the payroll, I've done the business analysis, I've done the scoping. The only thing I haven't done is the deep code cutting. So you get really used to being able to do everything. And it was only when we hit the kind of 60 mark that we actually got a dedicated person in the people, performance and capability space. And I'm sort of thinking, well, what are they going to do? This is kind of about 20% of my time as a full-time job. And she's been flat out. because she's got that dedicated focus. She's seeing things that we're not seeing. I think that's one of the biggest shifts as a founder is to actually let go and start to, I sort of think about it, if you're a founder who's quite versatile and you have done a whole lot of stuff, I kind of think about it as thin slicing your skill set. So the business is going to ask different things of you at 70 people than it did of 40 and then it did of 20. And so you can't keep doing all those other things and then adding more on. It's really about thinking about your skill set as a founder and thinking about, well, how do I thin slice? Which pieces can I actually take out and give to someone else who might actually be better at them than I am? Someone who's a specialist in finance, someone that's a specialist in people and performance, someone who's a specialist in pricing. Yeah, I used to read all their contracts, actually getting a relationship with a lawyer, all of those kind of things that come with kind of making that shift. So yeah, the whole new people, talent and onboarding, the thin slicing. And then the third one for us has been, because we've grown organically, we've historically been very, very connected to people. We've known their kids, we know their hobbies, we know who they are. That starts to become problematic to scale one-on-one at 70. And so thinking about what does the business architecture look like to build that kind of scale, setting up the regular mechanisms around what meetings are we going to have, what type of meetings are they going to be, how's the communication going to flow, what metrics are we going to have, how's that going to flow, and what kind of actions are we going to take. So now we've gone from Sarah and Grant go consulting with their friends to Sarah and Grant are actually building a serious business, doing significant volumes of turnover that has significant people's welfare attached to it. Time to grow up and take this a bit more seriously.
Yeah. So many people who are joining us won't be at the 70 employee level. They may not even be at the 20 employee level. They might be having 5 or 10 people, or in some cases only 2 or 3 people. But they are thinking about growth. They are thinking about how they can make a bigger impact, and they're recognizing that they can't do everything themselves. And if they're trying to do everything themselves or too much themselves, it likely means they're spending a lot of time on low value kind of tasks and activities, where if they want to grow, they need to be shifting to be focusing much more on high value activities. Is there a framework or a process that you use? Maybe it's changed over the years, but my real question is, how do you think about the connection between hiring and value? Some people talk about that every hire that you bring on should be able to create 4 times their salary in value. And I'm just wondering that, especially with your example right now of thin slicing, there might be certain things that you need to take off your plate, but those activities may not necessarily create a certain level of value right away. So I'm just wondering, how do you think about hiring and the value that comes from that, and not just necessarily putting money towards something that doesn't add a lot of value for the business?
Yeah, wow, that's a really perceptive question. And I don't think we have the answer to that right now. So even just now, and again, you can see we're mature in some areas, we're immature in others. Now just starting to really dig into where our gross margins and what drives profitability. So one of the things that's interesting and different about us perhaps is that we started off as a consulting company. So we do kind of small pieces of work, maybe a 20K job or a 30K job. And over time, we still do a little bit of that, but we now do really large projects, massive implementations. We might have 10 or 12 people on a project for a period of 6 to 9 months. We also provide regular services through contracts, so as a service that gets the recurring revenue, and we've also built product. So for us, there's kind of like a lot to unpick in terms of, if I add a body here, what does that mean in terms of how that drives my revenue? So we're tracking it, but it's an area where I want us to do some more work. I don't think we're particularly clear. Maybe one of the other kind of measures of value, though, is the time that we get back as founders. And so we're starting to be really intentional about that around, well, actually, if I can hire someone and it means I don't have to work a 40 or 50 hour week, then that's a win for me. Or I hire someone, I don't have to work a big week on this stuff, which I'm kind of over, but I can start to explore some interests over here. That's a win as well. So it's not just the money, but it's also the time you get back. It's also, I think, one of the biggest things for me was our finance manager. And we've had our finance manager for about 4 or 5 years, and she's just completely amazing. She's just superb. She gives really great detailed reports. She's always across the numbers. She's really analytical. But what I hadn't realized was that she's actually worrying about the money so I don't have to. And so I sat down with her earlier this year and I said, it worries me when I don't see the cash flow on time because I wonder, have we got enough money to pay the bills? And she said, Sarah, I am worrying about that for you so you don't have to. And here are all the safety mechanisms I've put in place. Here are all the triggers. But also what I will do is I will make sure that you know at this particular time every month, even if I haven't done the full cash flow, even if I haven't done the full P&L and balance sheet for the month, I will make sure you know what our financial position is. It's an extra half hour for Rachel. And for me, it's sleeping at night. I've outsourced the worry.
Yeah, I resonate with that very much. Even though we're not 70 people, it's something that I think both on the kind of buying back your time, right? Making an investment to be able to have more time, whether that's time that you're spending with your kids on hobbies, other areas of the business. Time is our most precious asset. So I totally resonate with that. And then the other one is, as a founder, there's little things that you're going to often be kind of worried about or thinking about. And you just want to know that things are taken care of so you don't need to think about them. So I totally hear you on that. One more question kind of related to this topic, and then I want to dive into some of these other questions that I've prepared for you. But this one, Sarah, is, you talk about you're growing to new levels. You're pushing the boundaries of where you've been to this point. So there's a lot of kind of new territory that you're covering. How are you navigating that? Like, as a founder and, with a company that is consistently growing, are you working with coaches? Do you have mentors? Are you learning from books? Are you taking courses? Like, how are you educating yourself or getting through this? Or is it just, you're just going through it and figuring it as it comes? What's your approach to continuing to grow and learn and kind of apply best practices?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. So I'm really fortunate. So I'm not a solo founder. I'm a co-founder with my husband. So we started the business together, and then somewhere along the line, well, we better get married as well. So we kind of did that thing. We read all the time. So we're frequent readers. For us, what we like to do is we like to go away on holiday. We'll take 2 or 3 business books. We'll both read them. We'll take our business plan with us and we'll match that to the business plan. So we're not about reading for the sake of reading. Always looking for actionable insights, things that we can do today that will make a difference. And often I use the word incremental. I like doing things incrementally. You try a bit, you see what happens. You try a bit, you see what happens. So our business plan is really alive for us. It's an evergreen document, and we shove the old stuff to the back, we put the new stuff at the front, and we just keep on iterating that. So there wouldn't be a single month that we wouldn't go back and look at that. Not kind of intentionally, let's sit down and look at the business plan, but more we said we were going to do that, and how's that working for us? Or remember we planned that? Well, that hasn't really turned out. So the whole book thing are really intensive for us and also really broad. So we read a whole lot of human behavior. We read a lot of history. We read a lot of science. So not kind of the 10 keys for business success.
Yeah. I love that you are not only consuming and learning, but the two of you have that kind of platform or opportunity to discuss and then to implement it into your actual overlay on top of what the business is currently doing, and then figure out, is there some way that we can apply this new idea or this insight or this tactic or this approach to strategy together? So that's fantastic. Switching gears for a minute, then Sarah. Yeah, go ahead.
Could I maybe talk about a couple of other things?
Sure. Yeah. If you got more.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
It's not just the reading. So you mentioned coaches and mentors, and we spend quite a bit of time finding really, really good people to talk with. So typically for us, we wouldn't enter into a long coaching engagement. An engagement for us might be 5 or 6 months, maybe would be a really long engagement. So what we're looking for is someone at that moment in time who has done the thing or had a problem with the thing that we are struggling with. So we've worked with an amazing coach out of Toronto, actually. We worked with him first about 10 years ago, then worked with him again another sort of few years ago. We've worked with a great CEO, business operator here in New Zealand. So we're looking for people. We have a problem. At any given time, we'll have a problem, right? So one coach isn't going to solve every problem that we're going to have. So we're looking for someone that can help us with that specific problem. So the one I'm kind of grappling with at the moment is, what does it look like for us if we were to get a chief financial officer, because we're at a scale now where shit's getting serious. And yeah, as I said, I've got this wonderful financial manager, and she's saying to me, Sarah, we've got to get a CFO. So now I'm out and I'm talking to people about, what does a CFO look like in your organization? When's the right time? What kind of CFO is the right sort of fit? Doing that kind of stuff.
Such an important kind of attribute and I think just mindset that you tend to see successful entrepreneurs have, which is just recognizing that you're going to need to invest in learning from others, whether it comes in the mentor kind of approach or coaches or programs or whatever, because if somebody has already done what you're looking to do, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's lots of brainy people out there.
Yes. There definitely are, right? Which is why it's so important to vet, to really make sure that you're talking to somebody that truly has the experience and expertise and understands what you're going through. I want to ask you about Microsoft 365, because your business is very connected to kind of the Microsoft brand, Microsoft 365. And I'm wondering, why did you decide to align and kind of base your business on, one company's offering? Some people might look at that and go, well, isn't that a bit of a danger? If we're putting kind of all of our eggs into the Microsoft basket, what does that mean for the business? So I'm just wondering if you could share kind of the strategy or the thinking behind doing that.
Yeah, so it wasn't intentional when we started. So we started out doing general technology consulting, knowledge management, information management, change management, and we still do a little bit of that today. So one of the things that we used to do a lot of engagements on were document management systems. So what did an organization need? What was the best in the market, etc. And around about 2008, 2009, we really became aware of Microsoft SharePoint offering. They had SharePoint 2007 out, and it looked like it might be a good fit for some of the problems that our customers were having. And I think we might have only had about maybe 6 or 8 people at the time, and it was really organizationally uncomfortable because we'd spent time in the competing technologies and we saw the Microsoft offer and we knew it wasn't mature, but we knew where Microsoft was taking the product. And we said, hey guys, we actually have to start focusing over here. And organizationally, that was really tough for us. We built a brand around being technology agnostic, technology independent. And now we're saying to our customers, actually, we really think this thing is going to take over the market. And so then when Microsoft came out with Microsoft 365, which is SharePoint, Word, etc. in the cloud, you could just see the investment that Microsoft were making there, and we couldn't recommend anything else to our customers. They needed a partner who could take them out the other end of complex and make it simple. They needed a partner that they could trust to do it right. And so that was the shift for us.
Do you think that if you would have remained, vendor or technology company agnostic, like just being able to suggest anything and not only Microsoft, that the company would have grown at the same rate and to the same level of where it is today? Do you think you could have gotten there? Or do you believe that the focus on Microsoft really was a wave that pulled you forward much faster?
Yeah, certainly the latter. I think if we hadn't done that, we'd have about 10 people. A typical engagement would be 20 to 30K. We'd struggle to keep at 10. We'd bounce up and down. We'd be a small boat on choppy seas. So connecting to Microsoft 365 has meant that we can do larger pieces of work, as I said, those big implementations. We've also built a whole framework around what it looks like to be successful in Microsoft 365 so that we can take our customers right through the process, through the full project process, and really deliver a great outcome. And that means we can train to that as well. So maybe that's also, we talked a little bit about messaging at the start, for us getting clear about, we like being technology independent, we like doing information management, we like doing knowledge management, but actually, here's where customers are telling us they need the help. Here's where we need to play.
Hey, it's Michael here, and we'll be right back to the podcast. But first, are you ready to grow, scale, and take your consulting business and marketing to the next level? If so, our Clarity Coaching program may be a great fit for you. You'll work with our experienced team to set up a strategic plan for your business and coach you step by step in areas like how to consistently attract more leads, develop a magnetic message that resonates with your ideal clients, strategically package and position your services, earn higher fees, win more proposals, and scale your business. To find out more about Clarity Coaching and apply, go to consultingsuccess.com and click on coaching.
So yeah, I'm glad that you're bringing that up. I have a note here for us to come back to talk about what changed that really kind of catapulted or pushed things forward a lot faster. What I'm hearing you now say, Sarah, is that your growth has really come from focusing. So shifting away from being technology agnostic to really selecting Microsoft 365. Another question kind of had for you, and maybe you could jump in and share this, but to me, from the research that we did, your focus is really New Zealand. You're not trying to work in America or Europe or anywhere else in the world. And so it appears, at least from my perspective, that you've been very selective, and over time, you have not necessarily tried to expand. You've just continued to kind of narrow in and really focus in a specific market with a specific technology, and that has led to growth. Is there anything that I'm maybe not seeing correctly there, or anything that you would touch on? And the reason I bring this up is that so often consultants believe that the way they will grow is through expanding. They're scared. They're fearful that if they narrow in, they're going to lose a lot of opportunities. But here you are today. And again, it appears to me that you were already at 40 or so people here, and today you're at 70. And so to go from 40 to 70, you didn't expand to have a ton of additional offerings. You actually narrowed in. So am I missing anything? Did I get anything wrong there? I'd love for you just to kind of correct me if I did.
You're spot on. And we have a phrase for it. We call it fish at your feet. And again, this was organizationally controversial because when you get certain customer base, every now and again, a customer will say to you, "Oh, hey, Sarah, I know this isn't what you normally do, but we love working with your people. Can you come and do this weird and wonderful thing?" And you think, "Oh, yeah, we could do that." And before you're off doing something completely random that you can't codify. Yes, you can make money on the time fees, but you're never really going to get the multiplier that you need around codifying what the methodology is, teaching it to others, and putting a framework around it. So yeah, and in fact, it's a key line in our vision is working with New Zealand organisations to make them resilient and competitive. That's a key thing for us, and the New Zealand word is there intentionally. I think there's that element of focus. I think the other element of focus is stopping doing things that we used to do that don't serve our current focus. And that's really, really hard, because what that's meant is, in many cases, we've given work to people who were historically our competitors. We've said, we used to do this kind of stuff, but actually we don't do that anymore. Steve's company, they do that all the time. Go talk to them. That's really hard. When you start out, you're hunting, you're looking for every single piece of work, and you guard it so carefully, and you make sure you pick up every little piece that's going. And so for us, that huge mindset change to focus over here, give up some of the stuff we don't want to do, that doesn't serve that purpose, that mission anymore, and just try not to get distracted. Try really hard not to get distracted.
And if you were, let's say, the founder or co-founder of a company, and you have 5 or 10, employees, and you're doing $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever, doesn't matter exactly the numbers. But let's just say if you were at a much smaller stage, would your kind of advice and thinking on this topic change from where it is today?
I think you got to make sure you got cash coming in the door. So when you're small, you have to really, really watch the numbers. You have to be looking at the bank account. You have to be keeping the thing safe. But if you get that level of safety, then to be thinking about really focus. Where do we focus? And your customers will tell you, and the market will tell you, the things that they're coming to you for. That's kind of the direction that you need to be going. So not the one-offs, but where you're getting that critical mass. We've had 5, 8, 10 customers ask us for this thing. Actually, maybe here's somewhere we could go.
Right. So I think the point I just want to drive for everyone joining is that this is your advice, right? Even at the size that you are today, is to narrow, to focus, right? And there's a lot of people earlier on in their business who think, no, I can't narrow in, because in order to grow, I need to go broader, or I have to provide more and more services. But it seems like that's not the case in your experience. I mean, maybe that's the way you started off, but you focus just on New Zealand, you focus just on Microsoft 365, and there's plenty of market available, right? The pie is quite large. And here you have people who might be 1 employee or 3 employees or 5 employees, and they're thinking that they need to tackle a much bigger market and even have less focus than you. So I think hopefully this just goes to show that you can build a very significant business and a growing business by being specialized, by having clear focus and not trying to be all things to all people.
Yeah, I like the idea of going deep. So really going deep into your vertical in terms of your subject matter, going deep into your vertical in terms of the customers that you solve. And the deeper that you go, the more your sales process takes care of itself, because people know you for that thing and they talk to people and people come to you.
What have you done from a marketing perspective that has worked really well? And is there anything that you've done just did not work well? Like you tried something and it did not generate any kind of results?
I think the thing that worked really well, which we've actually stopped doing and are about to restart, and I'll talk a little bit about why that is. The thing that we did really well a couple of years ago was we actually started to meet monthly, specifically focused on marketing.
And when you say we, who was we when we meeting?
So myself, Grant, my co-founder, and then a couple of key people. We had a marketing person and a key person who was involved with what we call our kind of customer community. So we started to meet, I think it was actually 3 weekly rather than monthly. So we started to meet regularly and really thinking about tone of voice, image we wanted to project, what the graphics were that matched to that. And so starting to build a cadence. Yeah, it's just business kind of 101. We had a marketing plan. We thought about our marketing positioning, both in terms of talent we wanted to attract as well as the customers that we wanted to attract, and really building that cadence. And we did that really, really successfully for a period of time, probably for about a year. The other thing that kind of plugged into that was we entered the Microsoft Partner Awards for New Zealand, and we won in our category about 3 times out of the 5 years in which we entered. So, yeah, small company, really picking up big and putting a lot of effort into those case studies as well.
Before you go on, so I'm wondering 2 things on this. I mean, when you talk about the awards and the case studies, is there anything that you did with them that you found was helpful? Like some people just they'll have case studies, they'll put them on their website, or they'll say, we won this award. Like, is there any way that you leverage that or kind of just got it out there further?
So we stopped using third parties to write and produce our awards. You get the kind of 1-page case studies, and they're really bland and they're really generic because nobody cares about your customer. Nobody cares about what you offer as much as you do. And so coming back to the thin slicing, this is something that Grant and I do because it interests us, is we really wrote the case studies. Grant, the design with in-house graphic designer, an external PR person, a journalist, they're not going to know what's so special about that customer and what's so special about that job. And we do because we feel it and we care about it. So bringing that in-house, doing that ourselves was a real game changer for us.
Got it. And was there anything else from those monthly or so marketing meetings? I understand that you're putting just more attention focus to marketing, which means you probably come with more ideas and you can track the data and see what's working and what isn't. Is there anything that came out of that, aside from the awards and case studies, that you found from a marketing perspective was very helpful in generating, leads and inbound inquiries and creating more conversations with ideal clients?
We put a lot of emphasis on our presence on LinkedIn. So for us, that's kind of given us the biggest bang for the buck. And I think why that is, and I don't know if it's the same why, but certainly in New Zealand, everyone's loosely connected to someone else or 1 or 2 connections removed. So put a lot of attention into our LinkedIn, and the kind of secret sauce there is what we did was we profiled our customers and we profiled our team. So we focus less, come and work with us, wonderful. We focused on the work that our customers were doing. We looked for their posts and we looked to amplify and give value to their posts as well. So really raising them, and then we're kind of sitting in the slipstream. And one of the things that's been lovely is if you look at our LinkedIn over the past couple of years, what you can see is you can see so many customers mentioning our projects. Had the great team from Information Leadership here today. They ran an amazing workshop. We did this, we did that, we did the next thing. So that social proof coming through because we amplified who they were and we amplified the good decisions that they made and we amplified how they worked on their project rather than making it about us.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned sales process or kind of how you approach sales just at a very high level. I'm wondering, how long is your typical sales process when you're dealing with some of these public organizations or just large organizations that are your clients, what do you find is a typical kind of sales cycle? How many months is it? Or years?
Yeah, the longest has been 10 years. I thought that one was well dead. Because of the kind of organizations we work with, many of them have to go through like a planning cycle. So it can be 6 to 12 months for it to come through. Typically what we'll do is we'll start with a smaller piece of work where we'll actually work through with them what they want, and we'll really nail down the pricing. And then it will go through their cycle, which can take 4 or 5 months before it kind of pops out the other end.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've done around that regarding the sales cycle and the sales process that you have found has helped to shorten the sales cycle, or just to get a win sooner, or made the overall process more effective compared to the way it was before?
It's hard to quantify, but I think this is where the marketing comes into play, in that we're finding that we're invited to have a conversation with prospective customers much more frequently. We're invited often times now before they select to provide information and to give insights. And we do that at no charge. We've run a number of workshops for customers at no charge to help them understand the domain that they're stepping into. And so while if you think about the sales process starting there and going to a win, that's a long time. When the actual request for work actually comes through, then that's shortened because we've already had those kind of conversations up front. And so we try really hard to, our company name, Information Leadership, it's an aspirational name. So one of the things we want to do is we want to provide leadership for the country in the area of information. So we're trying to educate and share as much as we can to help organizations make good decisions, regardless of whether they choose us or not, because it's their backyard.
Yeah, like you're taking that position of a thought leader and expert, putting out valuable information, and then regardless of whether the organization chooses to work with you or not, you're at least, it's kind of like that concept of giving value right before you try and get something.
Absolutely. We try and do this in a way that's unique. So a lot of our content, it's not lots and lots of words. It will have diagrams and graphics and ready reckoners to, again, make it simple for our customers, make it simple for our prospects. So trying to really bring value in that way as well, so that if you read something from Information Leadership, it's not one of 10 different articles about Microsoft 365. There's lots of people who can tell you about what the functionality is and what different widgets and bits and pieces do. What we're trying to do is show, okay, if you take this piece of Microsoft 365 functionality, here's how you connect it into the business, and here are some of the things you need to watch out for, and here are some of the things you could share with your executive, or here are some of the things you could share with your team members. So we're trying to provide something that's really different and unique, rather than just pumping out content on a regular calendar. It's just throwaway. ChatGPT is going to do all that for us soon anyway.
Right. A great reminder for everyone to think about differentiation and not just doing the same thing as everybody else. As you said, there's tons of articles and content out on Microsoft 365. You don't want to just be another one of those people or companies. So thinking about how you can bring something unique or deliver kind of value in a unique way to those that you want to serve and work with is extremely important. So another question, we'll wrap up here shortly, but this question could go one of two ways. The first is, I'm wondering, is there one kind of learning experience? I don't really like the word mistake because we've all made plenty of them, but I think about as learning experiences. So is there one learning experience that you personally have had inside of the business that just really sticks with you? Like you remember it quite vividly. And so that's, you go that direction. Or is there a mistake or learning experience opportunity that you see other consulting firm owners make that you wish that they would avoid?
That's a really good question. I can think of so many mistakes. Isn't that awful? Yeah. So many things to choose from.
Well, no, I often find it's easier to think about what you see happening with others as opposed to seeing what's happening to yourself, right? Which is why people work with coaches or consultants or experts, because they have external viewpoint. Yes, you can take that question. Whatever comes to you first is totally fine.
I think one of the mistakes that we've made is getting seduced by name organizations. And we really want to do that piece of work because that will be so prestigious for us, and that will be just amazing, and everyone will know that we've worked. And so that's meant that we've taken work that's not a good for us, or we actually can't make a difference, or whether people haven't enjoyed doing that work. So where that's taken us to is before we bid for a piece of work, we have a 5-step go, no-go questionnaire that a team of our experts go through. And one of the questions on there is, are we likely to make a difference? Is our team going to enjoy doing this piece of work? Because people will show up for you and they will do the work that you ask them to do. But if you keep putting them into that pleasant work, they'll get to a point where they've had enough, and that's just not okay. So really sort of thinking very critically about its focus around the nature of the work, but it's also the focus around, can we make a difference? Will the organisation be good to work with? And just not getting seduced with their name, really important.
Is that an internal document, or do you also make that publicly available on your website for prospective buyers and clients to see?
Oh my gosh, I love that idea. It's an internal document, but there's no reason why we wouldn't publish it. That's really interesting to help organizations see whether we would be for them.
Yeah, we've often found that some of the most affecting or effective marketing, right, comes from this idea of kind of polarization where you're not trying to attract everybody. You're trying to, in some ways, kind of repel those that aren't a good fit. But by doing so, your language tends to resonate with those who do have the same kind of beliefs or values. And then they become more attracted to you because they now see more and understand more of what you stand for.
Yeah, look, I really love that. I really, really love that. I'll go and have a look at it. I'll see if we can publish
You're welcome to run with if it helps. Yeah. All right. So Sarah, before we wrap up, because I want to be conscious of the time that we have in the calendar here, but I'd love to hear, you're running now a business with 70 people, right? It's growing, lots of different things happening. How do you take care of yourself? And as that, I'm referring to this idea of 1 or 2 habits that you do right on a daily basis that you feel really support the performance and success and just effectiveness at work and also in life.
Yeah, sure. So I work out every day. I can't not work out. So
when you say you can't not, what happens if you don't?
What happens if I don't? Just feel lethargic.
I'm the same. That's why I'm asking, because if I don't exercise in the morning, I don't feel I can show up in the same way. I often feel kind of guilty, like, why didn't I do that? So
yeah, and it's like you've already had a win for the day, right? Whatever else happens, you've done the exercise, and you mentioned earlier that you've got kids. So the start of the day is kind of like the only time, because after that, anything can happen. So you got to get the start of the day. The other thing I do, there's a great book. One of the authors is called Jake, and I can't remember who the other author is, but talks about kind of planning your week. So I go for front, back burner. So what's the one most important thing I have to do this week? What's the second most important thing I have to do this week? So front burner the first, back burner the second, and then I have the kitchen sink where I write the list of everything I have to do. I'll review that every Sunday, and I'll move forward the things that I haven't done. And again, each Sunday I'm thinking about what's the one most important thing and what's the second one if I knock the first one off.
Yeah, got it. So you're planning ahead and looking at that consistently to make sure that you spend your time not just on the easiest things, but actually on the things that contribute the most value and are of highest priority.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for the easy things that you can cross off straight away, right? So this is really confronting.
Most people are, right? Which is why people tend to do a lot of work that feels like it's productive because they're doing a lot of stuff and maybe spending a lot of time on it, but often isn't actually the stuff to build a business, right? I mean, it's the things that are harder tend to be reaching out to clients or trying to have conversations or doing follow-up, or these are things that, for many people aren't necessarily where they want to spend their time, but are the things that really do help to build or grow the business. So that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned one author. I know we don't know exactly who that is just yet. The other question I was going to ask you is there a book that you've either read or listened to in the last 6 months or so? It could be fiction or nonfiction, but it's something that you've really enjoyed that you might suggest others take a look at as well.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. Reading Scaling Up at the moment, hugely helpful, just really, really practical.
Yeah, Verne Harnish, right?
Yeah, Verne Harnish, just lots of great content in there. The other work that I've been looking into quite a bit is the Elliot Jack's work on requisite organisation. So he's written quite a lot of work about how organisations grow and develop over time and problem-solving capabilities of leaders. So requisite organisation, it's hard to find. It's an older one. I had to get a second-hand copy. But yeah, that's quite useful.
Sometimes the best ones actually are harder to find. That's my experience. And I certainly have a bit of a hobby of trying to find those hard to find books, or at least joy of discovering them in used bookstores. So I get you on that. We'll leave the names of those 2 books in the show notes over at consultingsuccess.com. Sarah, I want to thank you so much for coming on here today and just spending a bit of time with us. Really appreciate you sharing a bit of your story and your journey. I also want to make sure that people can learn more about you and everything that you have going on at your company. Where's the best place for them to go and learn more?
At our website, informationleadership.co.nz.
All right. We will link that up as well in the show notes. Thanks again for coming on.
Lovely. Thank you so much for the invitation, Michael. Really good to see you. Thanks for the good questions.
Thanks.
And there you have it for today's episode between Michael and Sarah. If you enjoyed today's podcast, then as always, be sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to your favorite shows. And again, to enter the contest, be sure to leave a rating and review over at Apple Podcast. Now, as you would have heard in today's episode, Sarah spent a significant amount of time and money dedicated to finding coaches, dedicated at a minimum of 6 months to helping her and her company solve specific problems. And she's done this throughout her career. And if you're looking to take your business from 6 to 7 figures or 7 to 8 figures, then you're going to want the Consulting Success team there to help you. If you want to work with the Consulting Success team directly and receive personalized coaching to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, be sure to visit consultingsuccess.com/grow to learn more and apply today. That's the end of the line for us this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until next time.